Good evening. Welcome to Columbia Heights Public Schools Independent School District 13 School Board meeting for Tuesday, September 25th, 2018. I'd like to call the meeting to order and ask you to please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Welcome again. Don, if you would, roll call, please.
Samurai, Palmer, Lewis.
Here.
Larkin.
Here.
Severson.
Here.
Mueller.
Here.
Superintendent Kelly.
Here.
Okay, thank you. Our mission statement, Columbia Heights Public Schools create worlds of opportunity for every learner in partnership with supportive small-town communities by challenging all to discover their talents, unleash their potential, and develop tools for lifelong success. Our core values are community, excellence, collaboration, integrity, respect, courage, and innovation. First up tonight would be an approval of the agenda and then the announcements. Start with the agenda. If I could get a motion to move that forward, please.
So moved. Oh.
Natty?
Second.
Molly, thank you. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Motion carries. Announcements, October 9th at 5 p.m. There'll be a subcommittee on policy meeting in the superintendent's conference room. Also on October 9th, there will be, at 7 p.m., there's a regular school board meeting. October 16th at 5 p.m., there'll be a school board listening session. On the 16th as well at 5:30, school board work session. October 17th, Wednesday, there's no school. It's a district in-service day. October 18th and 19th, there's no school. October 23rd at 7 p.m., there'll be a regular school board meeting here in the community room. Next up would be correspondence. Superintendent Kelly, any correspondence tonight?
Mr. Chair and members, there's no correspondence at this time.
Okay, thank you. Communication to the board. Citizen and employee representatives. At this time, any citizen or employee may briefly address the school board. The board will listen to the brief remarks, ask clarifying questions, and if desired, request that administration follow up. The board will not take action at this meeting on requests presented at this time. You have anybody that's, anything tonight? Any blue sheets? Okay. All right, next up, consent agenda, which includes the personnel report. Motion to move that forward, please.
So moved.
Lorian,
Second.
Natty. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Motion carries. Next up would be acknowledgement of contributions. This is a resolution. I'll ask for a motion, a second. I'll read it and then open it up to discussion. Motion to move it forward, please.
So moved.
Lorian.
Second.
Molly. Thank you. Acknowledgements of contributions resolution. Whereas Minnesota Statute 123B.02 permits school boards to receive for the benefits of the district bequests, donations, or gifts for any proper purpose and apply the same to the purpose designated. In that behalf, the board may act as trustee of any trust created for the benefit of the district and for the benefit of pupils thereof. Therefore, be it resolved by the School Board of Columbia Heights Public Schools, Independent School District Number 13, that the school board accepts with appreciation the contributions detailed in the background in the amount of $6,943. Under the detailed background, a donation of $500 was made to Valley View Elementary by Diane Roffler for student supplies. And then the following donation was made to Columbia Heights High School Scholarship Fund from the Columbia Heights Boosters, $6,000. From the K Foundation, $80.63. Value in kind, donations of school supplies to Columbia Heights Public Schools by Mary Dugdale for student needs, estimated value of $75. Also donation of school supplies to Valley View by Marcia St. Hilaire for student needs, estimated value of $35. A donation of school supplies to Valley View Elementary by Barb Nundahl for student needs, estimated value of $40. A donation of school supplies to Valley View Elementary by Grandpa's Ice Cream for student needs, estimated value of $200. A donation of school supplies to North Park Elementary by Grandpa's Ice Cream for student needs, estimated value of $150. Donation of books to Highland Elementary by Aaron Fryman for student needs, estimated value of $300. Donations of school supplies to Highland Elementary by Kit Burgoyne for student needs, estimated value $103. And donation of school supplies to Highland Elementary by Donna Scanlon for student needs, estimated value $40. Total fiscal year 2017-2018 monetary contributions to date, $9,093.63. Discussion, comments?
Just want to say thank you to our community members for their extremely generous support.
Yes.
Anybody else? Okay, oh, it's always appreciated, that's for sure. This is a resolution, so Don, I would need a roll call vote, please. Aye.
Lewis.
Aye.
Mueller.
Aye.
Severson.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you. Next up would be reports from members of the board. Board members report on board activities since the last regularly scheduled meeting of the Board of Education. Molly?
Sure. I attended the work session last week. Some junior varsity and varsity football games, of course, and the tailgating beforehand of the home games, which is nice to see more and more people coming out. Also got to attend the first adapted soccer game. That was really exciting.
Season started.
Yep, small team, but they're doing good. Yeah. Thank you. That's it.
Thank you. Lorian?
Yep. Attended the work session. Also attended a couple of swim meets, middle school football game, and the varsity tailgating and football game as well. And had several conversations with community members as well.
Okay, thank you.
Same on the conversations with community members. There's lots to talk about right now, so I think people are talking, which is always good, asking questions. Was able to attend a chair meeting right before this meeting, the work session with all of us last week. Went to a tennis match and went to a football game, the tailgating beforehand. Lots of fun.
Okay, thank you. I also attended the tailgating. It was nice to see everybody out. It was a beautiful night. Attended the football game, a chair meeting prior to this, and as I'm sure all of us are having multiple conversations with multiple community members as we move into the school year and into the fall. So, and that concludes my report. Next up would be Superintendent's report.
Mr. Chair and members, the Teachers Local 710 and the admin held their first labor management meeting of the year. And this group meets monthly on issues and questions and concerns regarding the contract. Executive Director of Educational Services, Zena Stenvik, and I met with the Local 710 President and the Chief Negotiator to kick off the year for our monthly meetings. And these meetings are a small group that clarify and have discussions regarding upcoming matters that might have to do with the contract. The New York Study Seminar team met to continue planning for the spring trip, and the plans are underway in the planning stages. The hotel arrangements have been made. The band will be performing on the U.S. Navy ship, the Intrepid, and we're waiting for final numbers. The planning team is on exactly what students are attending after the first payments to see when we can start booking our Broadway show tickets and things like that. So a lot of planning going into that. I had the honor and the privilege to be present when North Park Elementary School received the 2018 U.S. Department of Education Green Ribbon Schools Award. And we're really proud of the North Park students, the staff, and the parents over there for really integrating the three pillars of what that award is all about, which is really reducing the impact on the environment, either by cost reduction or by actual waste, improving health and wellness, and effective environmental and sustainability education. And when you think of North Park, it's really integrated into the climate and culture of the building. And as I listened to the awards being given, I just realized how deeply enmeshed this was for them, and for them being a beacon for our district. So congratulations to all on that. We will be having them come before the board and doing a little bit more on that award, but it was one of those goosebump things, so really glad to have experienced it. The Executive Director of Educational Services and the high school principal and the assessment coordinator and I had a final meeting with Carrie, the University of Minnesota Research Organization, on our research project, and it really is, we're going to go forward with it. And the topic is to identify and validate predictive measures of success on concurrent enrollment courses. How's that for a lofty ideal? And this project will be done in conjunction with Mounds View Public Schools, Buffalo Public Schools, St. Paul Public Schools, and possibly 2 other school districts who are still making up their mind. And we think it'll take us a year to do it, but we think that it's going to be very fine research that we would like to share both with the legislature and with the MNSCU board, the State University Board. I'm happy to announce that we have a tentative agreement with the educational assistants that just happened this afternoon. And since that occurred, we'll have a closed session for the board on October 9th to talk about what went on with the inner workings of that, and then there'll be a vote by the educational assistants, and then we'll bring it back to the board for final approval. And I think with that, oh, no, I have more. Lucky you guys. I met with the city manager of Columbia Heights this afternoon, and I also had conversations and contacts with multiple members on the board here, and I want to thank each of you for your time and effort, and I want to put a special word of thanks in for all the staff that filled in for me while I was gone at the Green Ribbon Award ceremony, so thank you all for filling in. That concludes my report.
Thank you. Next up would be the opening of school updates for Highland Elementary.
All right, good evening. Chair Larkin, members of the board, Superintendent Kelly, I'm pleased to be here tonight to talk about the opening of the school year for Highland Elementary. In line with our mission as well as our core values, really all of the core values will be touched on tonight in my presentation. I'm going to start with open house. We had an absolutely amazing turnout at open house. We did something new this year, which was really well received by many families. We took beginning of the year photos. So we had little chalkboards with printed first day of preschool, first day of kindergarten, all the way through 5th grade. And any family who attended, we gave them the opportunity either to take a picture with their phone, or we had the school camera and took photos of all of the students in attendance. So we had some that siblings partnered up and took individuals, but we're providing them a photo. So those have already been printed and distributed out to the students, so providing families with a photo to have. A couple of them, the photos were so delightful that the top of the black banner was a year, so they could choose between either Highland Elementary, a banner that said welcome back, or the black banner had the year on it, 2018, 2019. But as you can tell by the kindergartner's photo, it was so cute that I made one for her family just of a close-up shot. So we were able to get some amazing pictures for our family. Just one of the ideas that we had for open house, but kind of the nitty-gritty of it, we had about 70% of our families attend, which is truly amazing when you consider even the slow start we get in attendance at the beginning of the school year, kind of the trickle-back effect. So great turnout. We provide lots of information for families. So the first day of school is so much less chaotic when families attend open house because they already know the teacher. They've dropped off their school supplies. They have the opportunity to pick up lots of information. The classroom teachers have information waiting for families on the desks or the tables, one of which is the student profile. So it's the information that goes into Synergy that we're updating, but it's so much easier when we're able to just collect that on open house night. We also walk every family through the gym. We started that a few years ago, which is very successful in getting families to sign up for the lunch applications, as well as they sign up for fall and spring open house and the internet form. As many as we can get. We have lots of computers available. We continued with selling supply packs at a very reduced rate. So 3rd grade through 5th grade and our LEAP classroom were able to purchase all of their supplies for the school year for $10 a pack. So it's very affordable for families. And then any student that was unable to afford it, or after the first week of school, we stop selling them, and then we just distribute the rest out. We also had many booths, Anoka County Adventure Club, Avid booth, Early Childhood, and then Linda Linder, the Secretary for Highland, stays very busy with parents checking on transportation or changing addresses, things like that. But we had an amazing open house turnout, probably the best I've had since I've been here. It was really busy, steady all night, saw a lot of new families. So it was a really seamless process through the placement center on to us. The other really exciting thing that we're changing at Highland this year, in part with some staff change, but then also just our work that we've been doing with trauma-informed school approach or trauma-sensitive school approach, is we're rebranding our Time to Think room. So we have really worked at trying to make the room in line with students who are in trauma or students that are dealing with crisis in their lives. So to give them an opportunity to chill, to use calming tools, to possibly do some yoga. So we've added a lot of new features to our reset room. We're still using our components of responsive classroom, which are restorative practices and apology of action. So students, when they go, if they're sent there for what would have been a Time to Think visit, they're still working on how can they fix what was broken in the classroom, so when they're returned, they're ready to learn. But also have some new opportunities. So this is one of the pictures of what the room looks like, very different than what it did before. And a couple other differences. One is our yoga area. Then we have another area for students to sit and use calming tools. So we've added a lot of new features in hopes of making this room much more in line with what the students need to be ready to go back to class and be successful for the rest of the day. The last area that I'm going to focus on today is really a renewed effort with our PLC work. So Assistant Principal Kulik and I have been meeting with grade level teams since the first week of school. So Mr. Kulik is meeting with grades 2 and 4, and I'm meeting with the rest of the grades. We're working during either common planning time or before school or after school. We have a little bit of all of those going on. And the focus is really on academic proficiency and growth, student behavior, attendance, and social-emotional development. I think most of the teams have started with math. That's our primary focus at Highland. So most of the PLC teams have begun their work really digging deep into our initial math testing that we're doing in the building. So we've had several sessions. We're meeting twice a week with teams. Minimally an hour per week. Some of them were meeting a little bit longer. Some teams are doing 2 one-hour sessions. So lots of great work going on there. Questions or comments?
David?
Love the photo idea, getting the kids excited. Just a really small step to get the kids and parents excited about what's happening and show that we care about each individual student. That's a really great idea.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And just kudos to you guys for getting so many families out for the open house. That is really impressive. So
Thank you.
Yeah, it was amazing, and it was steady. Normally we get kind of the rush at the beginning, and then it kind of dwindles down. Sorry, it was very steady turnout, which is awesome.
Thanks, Michelle.
Thank you.
Next up, Metro North Adult Basic Education.
All right. Chair Larkin, members of the school board, Superintendent Kelly, I'm very pleased to be here this evening with Kathleen Moriarty, who is our ABE supervisor at our location that I've spoken about many times here at the school board meeting. We thought it would be a nice opportunity to come and enable Kathleen to share directly with you the great work serving so many of our adult learners in our community.
Yes, so thank you very much for inviting me to come. So we are located, our Adult Education Center school is right at 41st and Central. I'm guessing that many of you have seen it as you've driven down Central Avenue. Go to the next slide. I wanted to just give a quick, just a couple slides to kind of set the context for Adult Basic Ed, because we are sort of a unique program in the way we're set up in Minnesota. So we are part of a statewide system throughout Minnesota. ABE programs are offered through district community ed departments, with also some community-based orgs and correctional facilities. And statewide, last year we served 62,000 adult learners. And the programming is organized with multiple school districts pooling together to form consortia. So we can flip to the next one. So we are part of Metro North Adult Basic Education. Our mission and vision is listed up there. And Columbia Heights School District, we are part of this consortium. So our Adult Ed Center is supported by both Columbia Heights District, which we are a member of, and Fridley District. Anoka Hennepin School District is a fiscal agent for Metro North ABE. So our staff are all Anoka Hennepin staff, but the site is part of the districts where it's located. At our site, we serve adults, both native-born, native English-speaking adults who are looking to brush up and improve their skills, as well as non-native English-speaking adults, so immigrants and refugees at our center. So to give you a quick little glimpse, I have just a couple slides that are excerpts from an anthology of adult learners writing. It's called Journeys, and it's published by the Minnesota Literacy Council. We had 65 adult learners submit and be accepted into the publication last year. So this is just one example, so you can look at this, and this is from a student in our GED prep class. So Gina was employed. She'd worked at a job steadily for many years, lost that job, looked for a new job, actually had the skills and was able to get a new job, but that employer required a high school diploma or GED. And so as she mentions there, at her age, she didn't think that would come up for her, but she came, she worked towards her GED, she passed the exams. So that's just a snapshot of a student in our program. So the students that we serve, we help all of our adults just to succeed in their personal and professional goals, build their confidence and skills, and just help them to become more fully engaged in the community. Many of our students are parents in the school district. So this past year, we served 963 adult learners right here in Columbia Heights. And those students came to class for 104,251 student contact hours. The majority of our students, we do serve anyone 17 and above who's not enrolled in secondary ed. But most of our learners, majority of our learners, are in the 25 to 44 age range. And those student contact hours are important because that's our funding formula is largely dependent on prior year student contact hours. So I mentioned most of these points already, but we do serve anyone 17 and older. And typically, all of the folks who come to see us are functioning below a 12th grade level in one of the basic skills, if not all. And so we help them work on improving those skills. So to highlight some things happening at our school, so year-round, this is the programming that we offer. We run AM and PM classes, so we have 5 mornings a week of leveled ESL classes, and then also one class that's a GED prep, brush up, and college prep class. Those are our core programs. Then we are venturing into more career pathway programming. As a state, Adult Basic Ed is doing a lot of work in this area. As a consortium, we have a lot of programs that work in this area. Our Columbia Heights site has primarily been a core academic site, but we are now working at helping folks at a lower level to have entry points into career pathway programming. So food service careers is one example. Commercial driver's license is an example where there's a high need, and we're helping folks learn about that. And then school-age care. We did an internship this summer with our Fridley partner district. Here's another example. Since we serve at the Columbia Heights site a really large number of ESL adults. So this is just an excerpt from one of those students' writings. In our English classes, we really focus a lot on practical life skills, themes around housing, health, community, but we also are very academic focused, working on their academic vocabulary, reading, writing, math, and digital literacy skills. And in Minnesota, we have newly adopted Adult Basic Ed standards that we are implementing. So job skills, seeking employment, retaining employment is a really big part of what we work on with the adults. And you can see in this student comments her goals for English, but also her goals for starting a business and supporting her family. So Kristen had asked me to highlight some other things besides our core programming. So this is just a few examples of some things happening recently at our site. We, as I mentioned, are located at 41st and Central. We just renewed our lease, so we are there for another 5 years. In the community, it's really important to us to work on partnerships and connecting both locally and throughout the area. So obviously the school district, of which we are a member, we are also a partner with, and that's one of our largest partners. But we partner with the police, the public library, the Anoka County Workforce Center, and some other partners. Some grants that we've had recently at our center, in addition to our core programming, we were awarded a 2-year federal grant that's an IEL Civics grant that allowed us to add an additional class level with a focus on the core English literacy and civics component, while also looking at small business development. So that was a unique grant that we've been working on. For the past 4 years, we are also working as a sub-grantee under a USCIS citizenship grant, and we're offering a lot of citizenship exam prep classes. We piloted a summer school-age care internship with Fridley, and then we're piloting this new commercial driver's license programming for students and looking for partners. And Columbia Heights Community Advisory Board connected me with a great employer for that too. So working on that. So those are just some highlights. I put a little links here for you to visit us to learn more and to get some more visuals of our site. So we have our consortium website, our Facebook page, and then of course just to learn more about AB in general, the Minnesota ABE website. So I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have about our program.
Before we do that, I just want to give a lot of kudos and gratitude to Kathleen. I've been up here a number of times to talk about our lease and to talk about our location. And I just want to acknowledge right now that Kathleen Moriarty is the one that does so much of the legwork around that. And I just really appreciate Kathleen's leadership, not only as an instructional leader, but also as a connector to our community, to really look out for our students. If you ever are feeling a need to be inspired or to have gratitude overflow in your heart, I encourage you to go to 4111 Central to see our adult learners that are so brave and are truly the lifelong learners. It's also, if you're looking for volunteer opportunities,
yes,
right?
Absolutely,
Okay.
absolutely.
So there's opportunities for people in the community to volunteer with Metro North, and they do a great job of really preparing individuals to be effective volunteers in that organization. But thank you, Kathleen.
Yeah, well, thank you. And thanks to the district for securing our lease for us.
Any questions or comments?
I don't know how you follow up what Kristen just said, but thank you. That's pretty eloquent. Thanks.
I will comment too. I know that I've had an opportunity through the Community Ed Advisory Council to visit the location, and I'll echo what Kristen said in that if you want to be inspired, one, Kathleen is extremely inspirational in and of herself. She's very passionate about this program, and it oozes out, and the success, I think, of this program is really due to your leadership, and I really appreciate that, and having the opportunity to see our adult learners and their appreciation for your hard work and your team that you do. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up would be Summer Academy.
Chair Larkin, members of the school board, Superintendent Kelly, I have the pleasure this evening to present on Summer Academy 2018. I'm joined by the Executive Director, Mike Schroeder from Summer Academy, and the Columbia Heights Public Schools Research and Assessment Coordinator, Disa Faybeck. So this evening, Director Schroeder will give us an overview of the Summer Academy program, and Coordinator Faybeck will provide information specific to Columbia Heights students. So of course our mission is to create worlds of opportunity for every learner, and Summer Academy is just one of those programs that provides those opportunities. Focusing in on our core values of community and excellence with this presentation, And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Executive Director Schroeder. Oh, excuse me. There will be no governance question coming forward. This is simply an informational presentation.
Thank you. Chair Larkin, members of the school board, Superintendent Kelly, I want to start by thanking the Columbia Heights staff for being such welcoming hosts. We couldn't achieve our goals without you, and I greatly value our partnership. Summer Academies are 2.5-week summer educational experience for high potential students that inspires, challenges, and develops children both academically and socially. A quick overview, we ran the program here at Columbia Heights utilizing both the high school and Highland Elementary from June 12th to June 28th. We ran from 8 to noon, all but 2 days. We had 2 extended days that went to 2:30. And our open house was on June 28th. And our open house is really an opportunity to showcase the work that the students do and an opportunity for our parents to come in and see possibilities for what lies ahead. And so we had a great turnout this year. We had 68 courses in grades 1 through 11. Our tuition was $430, $330 for our Columbia Heights students. Our student enrollment was 1,385, which is the highest that we've had since 2002. And we also had 72 students serving as teaching assistants. These are typically students that are in grades 7 through 10 and who we place into a classroom and assist, and really vital to the success of our classes. So what's new in 2018? We really listened to our families when it came to what we needed to change and what we needed to update. And one of those pieces was our registration system. We found a system that was a little bit easier for families to use. They were able to register multiple children under one account. And I think the biggest piece was the course selection. In years past, families were given a selection of 5 classes to choose from, and we would have to piece together this puzzle of how we fit every kid in. And with the new system, it allowed our families to choose in real time what course they wanted, and so that way they walked away with knowing I've been selected, I'm in this course, and I'm good to go for the year. So the ease of use was a big thing for us, and a convenience for our families. But with that piece, we recognized that there would be an opportunity gap. We would have families that might not be savvy to know that many of these classes are closed. Registration opens at 10 o'clock in the morning. That some of these classes by 10:40 are filled. And in fact, we had over 1,200 filled that day. And so it is a high need, and so we saw we needed to create an opportunity for some of our families who don't have the access to registering. So what we did is we set aside 20 slots for each district to bring families in to register before the open registration comes, to allow us to, and it's a starting point for us to really get more diversity within our program. And so I know Deesa is going to speak on that a little bit further, but it's something that we're very excited about at Summer Academy. The last piece that we added was we revamped our evaluation system. After my first year, I really didn't feel confident with that piece of communication for what the students should be expecting going into our courses. We have 68 very different courses, and I wanted some consistency. So at the beginning of the Summer Academy, home went a evaluation or a success criteria, so the kids and the families knew what it would take for a student to be successful in that class. And then at the end of the program, we sent that evaluation home, and so the families had clear communication of what took place during that course. So that was something, again, that we're excited about, and we were able to move more towards an online system as well with that. We did have 7 new courses, 9 new teachers, and a new media specialist this year. 2 of the courses that I want to highlight initially would be we got 2 new cooking courses in. which was exciting for us. But they both went in really different directions. One was more focused on the culture and diving deeper into the Minnesota culture and how the commonalities that are found within our culture, particularly around food. The other piece was Science in the Kitchen, which dove deep into the science and experiments and stuff like that. So it was exciting to have two new courses like that, but two very different courses. Along with that, we had Summer Academy News, which was fun for me to see these young students, middle school students, coming in and nervous as can be day one about interviewing. But by the time that, through the 13 days, you would see them more confidently walking up to staff and to other students and feeling confident in their ability to talk and to ask questions. So it was an exciting piece as well. And for our staff, I think the kids get excited to see something new, but also our staff are so excited to try something new. I know Jackie Flanagan is already coming up with ideas to change recipes and do new things, and I know Ben Kirkham's like, I can't wait to try this with our Summer Academy News. So while you always expect some bumps in here and there, the staff is really excited to move towards next year and to do it again. One final note for me. This being my second year, I tried to find one thing that I'm like, wow, this was really impactful for me as the director. And I think this year, the piece that really caught my attention is our stop motion animation class. And I was unable to attend the presentation the year prior. I was in the class a number of times, and what they do is they take many pictures, almost like clay animation, and I got to see the workup last year, but I didn't get to see the final product. And this year I was able to make my way into the auditorium where they had a number of classes, a packed auditorium with kids watching these presentations. And I got chills just hearing the applause and the laughter of all these kids. And I couldn't help but think of the confidence that we're building in these kids, in these opportunities that they may not receive elsewhere. And so I think I got choked up a little just seeing these kids get so excited about the work that they've done. And so we're thankful for the opportunity to be here and to work with these great students. And so I think that'll be something that I'll take away from Summer Academy 2018.
All right. Chair Larkin, members of the board, Superintendent Kelly, good evening. I'm excited to get to talk about our students at Summer Academy this year. And so Mike mentioned there was a slight tuition increase. We hadn't increased it in several years, and so that was a Summer Academy board decision. We were still able to offer it at that reduced price for our students, and we had a benefit that all of our scholarship requests that were asked of us were fulfilled. And so that was I think, a huge piece for our families, and you can see we had over $4,900 of scholarship for our Columbia Heights families. This new early registration process, as Mike spoke about, was phenomenal at Columbia Heights. We opened it to every single student. There was no stipulation on who could attend, what families were invited. And it was this idea that we had 20 slots. You had a good amount of time. You had a couple of weeks prior to when it was open to the masses, if you will. And really, the goal was to support any and all families. And so what that looked like this year, I was able to work with our urban liaisons at all of our elementary schools, and we came together and said, okay, what would be a benefit for families? Do we do it during school, after school, phone calls? How do we structure this? So we actually did a Tuesday and a Thursday evening. We did one kind of right after elementary school ends, and then one a little bit later in the evening. And we had myself, Zeno was there, we had Spanish speakers, English speakers, devices, everything there just to help facilitate the question of, okay, we had some families say they brought their cute little second grader and they're bubbling with excitement and they're saying, I have no idea what Summer Academy is. I've read this, I've read it in Spanish and I'm still confused, or English, still confused. So it was a huge success. All of our families were there for at least an hour. So that kind of gives you the timeline of questions, answers, getting the process filled out. And we had 8 families that registered within those 2 nights. So I thought that was pretty successful. And so what did it look like at Columbia Heights this year. We had 37 students attend, which is our highest since 2007. So it's really exciting for us. So we want to keep this momentum. We want that number to be even higher this coming year. So 69% of our students that were invited were able to attend. And you can see grades 2 and 5, you see the most amount of students, and we think that's due to, that's when we do our identification testing. And so the letters are kind of fresh. They get a lot of information, January, March, April, February. So we think that's why our numbers are higher there. Of course, I have to put everything in graph form. That's how my mind works as the assessment coordinator. So you can see over the years kind of what our enrollment at Summer Academy for our students has been. And last year, the question by this board was brought up about barriers. And so that really brought to light this early registration. So thank you guys, that was heard. And that very helpful. We still, of course, have some barriers. That idea of daycare, it is a half-day program, only until noon. So a few families wanted to register, it just didn't work out. Transportation, if they're not within walking distance or a family can't easily get here, was another slight barrier. We heard from a few people. And then scheduling. A lot of families like to take off right after school ends for their own family trips and relative visits and things like that. So we did hear a little bit on that of, oh, can you push it back a little? Oh, sorry, not this year. Supports, we talked about the aid we were able to offer. That communication, we had all of our liaisons call the families who speak Spanish as a home language to answer questions ahead of time, invite them personally to the support nights. And then we had a lot of our teachers reaching out to families too. And I would say, you know, okay, I have this many students signed up. Can you reach out to these others? We still have this many slots. Poor Mike was answering emails from me constantly of, okay, how many slots are still available? And so sending out, the teachers were extremely helpful.
So if there are any questions?
Any questions or comments?
How many districts are involved in this?
12 districts.
12, okay.
And it does go all the way through seniors, right?
Yes. Those have just completed 11th grade, yes.
I know that you guys have your work cut out for you in terms of the barriers, the scheduling, and all of those things. I just appreciate that you're considering it and looking at options, so thank you for that.
Definitely.
That early registration was offered to all the districts, correct?
Say that again?
The early registration was offered to all of the districts?
Yes, 20 slots in each district.
Did you find that it was successful or helpful with others as well? I mean, it sounds like it made a difference here.
I think so. I think so. I think a few of the districts are going to take the lead of Columbia Heights and do the registration. And I think that was a great success. And I know in our district that's something that Roseville is going to look at this year.
If I may add, that really came about at the board presentation last year. The board had many questions about registration. And so Director Schroeder really took a look at that registration process and with an equity lens to ensure that additional families or more families would have that equitable access to register their students.
Thank you. Yeah, thanks.
Well, I can say, I remember when you first came in and talked to us about being involved with the program, you had a high level of enthusiasm, and it does not seem to have diminished at all. That's awesome.
No, that's right.
And DZ as well. You guys, just as you're talking, just the smiles on your faces and the successes that you saw with the program, that's exciting. You know, whether it's our kids or any of the other districts, it's nice to see that we're recognizing that, you know, gifted and talented kids, you know, maybe come from different social classes, and they shouldn't have to not be able to be a part of the program if you guys can do anything to help with that. So that's really awesome that you're doing that. So thanks for all your hard work. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks. Strategic D. Lindsay.
Chair Larkin, members of the board, Superintendent Kelly. Today I'm here to present strategic roadmap, specifically Direction D, and this is for the 17-18 school year data. So again, our mission to create worlds of opportunity, and I do concentrate on how all of our staff do work to help students identify their talents, unleash their potential, and develop tools for lifelong success. Well, I think we could do all the core values. I'll concentrate on excellence, collaboration, and integrity. And so the vision for 2015, so we're in 2018 now, but it's irresistible employment with creative and collegial staff. And the strategic direction focuses on acknowledging and addressing tensions and opportunities for employments and partnerships between employees. So the first item that's looked at is the onboarding process for licensed. There was a little decrease. This looks at staff that complete Scaling the Heights in August. And sometimes it's a good problem, and it is a good problem, is that we get higher enrollments. We're hiring staff mid-year, so they don't get the opportunity to go to the Scaling the Heights. They do get an end of the year kind of wrap up. They all meet with HR, so they all get some kind of onboarding, but they just don't get that 3 days at the start of the year. The second item is onboarding for non-licensed. This stayed the same, so everybody does meet with the HR department for about an hour, complete their new hire paperwork, kind of go over some procedures of the district, and they get that contact of who to ask questions to once they start. One of the bigger ones, the planned retention. This stayed the same at level 5, so looking at employees that stayed from last year to this year. We had a small decrease in evaluations, and these are all completed within the time period. And some of this too is just we had some new directors and new principals, and they didn't know the staff as well, so we don't want to tell them to evaluate staff they don't know. So they'll get caught up this year. Then D5, 6, 7, and 8. This is a survey that goes out in April to all staff. This year we had about 115 complete the survey. And as you can see, and it's good news too, is we've always been at vision. So staff feeling that the working conditions are good, the labor management communications are good, that they're getting recognized, and they feel that they're getting that feedback that they need. So this just looks at the overall rating. As you can see, with the planned retention being the highest score that we look at. So again, a small decrease from 17-18. We went from 4.8 to 4.55, but it still puts us at vision for this strategic direction. So any questions?
Questions, anybody?
No, it's good to see the staff are responding favorably, and it's a good indicator for what's happening, so well done, Superintendent Kelly, too, all of you.
What was D1 again? What does that represent? That was the...
That was onboarding for licensed staff, so it's our newly hired teachers coming to Scaling the Heights, that three-day induction, we look at that, and the attendance in that program.
So if a teacher were hired after that event happened, they wouldn't be able to attend it, so, yeah.
But they still meet with HR, though, so they still get something, just not the great 3-day that teaching learning puts on.
Do you know the percentage of teachers that could attend that, the percentage that actually do, though, that are hired in time for that?
If they are hired in time, they all go.
Okay.
It's just, like I said, it's a matter of, we've got some times, because it's usually Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, where we're hiring up to that day, and so they're meeting with HR Wednesday morning and being walked over to Scaling the Heights, or they get hired Thursday morning and they're being walked over for Thursday and Friday.
Okay.
A lot of this just reflects, if we have a late, kindergarten enrollment goes up at the start of the school year, we're probably not hiring somebody right away. Or if enrollment's up at the high school, we have to hire somebody mid-year.
There's no way they would want to miss that bus ride.
That's what we tell them.
Right, yeah, it's the bus
Kind
ride.
of the talk of getting hired here, so, anyway. Okay, anybody else?
Yeah, I just have some questions with items D5, 6, 7, and 8, just looking at those. I mean, those are certainly areas that we've reached the level 5 in the vision area. But then looking at the percentage score, the vision is 70%. So, looking, we've exceeded the 70%, which is good, but in only one category are we at 80%. Do you have some tools that you're using to even increase that number from the 70%, even though a level 5 is 70, I'm assuming that we're trying to get above 70%.
We do try to get above the 70%. That'd be, the minimum, and that'd be a recommendation from TeamWorks when they put this all together. It's a good number. We do exit interviews, so when staff leaves, we find out why they're leaving, but then we've also done stay interviews where we select, usually it's about 10 people for the fall and the spring, and they meet with somebody in HR, and we ask them questions like, what's keeping you here? Why do you like it here? And then that information is compiled and nobody's told, that this person said this, but then we meet like with the principals and directors and can explain, here's kind of what we're hearing over in your building. And we get that stuff too from labor management, non-licensed labor management. We get feedback too. So sometimes it all kind of depends on the timing of the year when the survey goes out.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Anybody else?
What percentage of the staff actually complete the survey? Is it voluntary?
It's
Like-
voluntary, we send it out. It goes out to all staff, which is usually about 500. And usually it's anywhere from 115 to 130 each year.
Okay.
We put in the e-news, we send out reminders.
Busy teachers, busy staff members.
Yeah,
probably.
and we try to do it sometimes over, like if they have a grading day or an in-service day, or they might have time, we do it over a weekend, but we try to keep the same time frame from year to year. So,
Question? Anybody else? Thank you.
thank you.
Buildings and grounds. Brian?
Good evening, Chair Larkin, members of the board, Superintendent Kelly. This evening, I have a few updates on buildings and grounds from our projects from the summer of 2018, so this last summer, and some of the current projects we're working on, whether they be planned projects or projects that came up. And then just a note before we begin in the presentation that there will be a follow-up presentation later in the year discuss the 2019 projects. We're just not there with those projects yet. So of course, with our mission, creates worlds of opportunities for every learner, and our core values of community, excellence, collaboration, integrity, respect, courage, and innovation. And I believe that the Buildings and Grounds Department definitely covers all of those areas. We talk about where the funding comes from and how we get that funding, and the work that we do every day, and how we take how we do that work, the excellence in that work in the Buildings and Grounds Department. So it really covers all of our core values. So this presentation, there is no governance at this time, but of course there's components within this presentation that did at one point have governance, and or there may be some things in the future that will, but in this presentation there's no governance. So for Buildings and Grounds, just the primary funding sources that we're talking about, the facilities in a school district or any school district. There's a lot of square footage within the buildings. There's a lot of grounds to cover, and so it takes a lot of dollars and maintenance dollars to cover that. And so we have our long-term facilities maintenance dollars that come in. We have our regular capital dollars, and then we do have that 2014 community voter-approved capital projects levy. So for the 2018 projects, and I don't know too many people that get excited about boilers, but this is a picture of our new boilers. First, we had a major water repiping project at the high school, and this was a 2-year phase project. Some of us that have been here over the summer remember not having hot water for a little while in the district center. We had water, we just didn't have hot water. So they took all summer to complete the west wing of the high school, and this was focused on the cold water piping, but the pool area, the tech ed classrooms. So very happy that that project moved along. It was completed in plenty of time before the school year started. So that project went very well this summer. There wasn't any major gotchas, but you always come up with something in old buildings, like where did that water pipe come from? That's not on any maps. Where does it go? It goes into that wall. I don't know. But it went very well. It was a great project. And like I said, the Highland boilers. So the board remembers last year we had a steam pipe break between the high school and Highland Elementary, and then it became very evident that the building should have its own boiler system instead of relying on one single old pipe underneath the ground. So we are implementing those new boilers. We're right on schedule. They'll do their testing and they'll fire them up in the next couple weeks, and we'll be live just in time for heating season. So things are going very well with that project. And then the tennis courts. another very visible project, or I shouldn't say another visible, the visible project from the summer, the tennis courts. Just a picture of the tennis courts and the Heights tennis sign that's on the fence there now. So it's not, the courts themselves are completed. The wall is still not up, and that wall will get installed very soon. There's some pieces that are still waiting to arrive. A couple of the brackets, I guess, to mount showed up incorrect the first time, so we're waiting for them to come again. So as soon as they come in, we'll get that wall up, and that will be 100% completed. But the tennis courts themselves inside is complete, and kids and students are using it. So some current projects, and this is a never fun, exciting picture. That's actually our balancing. I would keep calling it a circulation tank, but technically it's a balancing tank. That's underneath in the tunnel in the pool, and that's what broke and caused us to shut our pool down. So it's kind of tough to tell because there's not a lot of space in there. So they're building this tank in the tunnel, and but it's a very important piece. You need it to run the pool, and so our existing tank, the inside of it came apart, which was causing it to expand and starting to leak water. And if that tank actually bursts completely, basically the entire pool drains into the tunnel, which obviously is not a good thing. So we had to shut the pool down immediately and start getting the team in and start building a new pool, or a new circulation tank. So that we're very, very close. We should have water running through that tank tomorrow. Then the pool should have the weekend to heat back to the temperature we need it to and balance chemicals out, and we should be ready to roll. So I didn't get a chance this afternoon to see if they got that last pipe connected. You can kind of see there's one that's not connected to the tank. That's the last piece before we can start filling the tank up. We did have high school boilers are original to our building, and so we're always continually repairing those. We had there's a lot of tubes inside those boilers, and a couple of them had failed, and they were just leaking too much, so we had to repair those. So that's a project that is in progress right now. We're kind of in a race against time in that repair because heating season is right around the corner. And then we discovered it this last school year. The high school has a dry sprinkler system, and it was actually a system that was put in pretty much original to the building. It's there's almost like a tunnel that goes into the dock area, and there's a dry sprinkler system there. And it was corroded and leaking and needed complete repair or replacement. So that's a project that was scheduled and is in progress right now. And they're actually getting very close to completing that because of course we want that complete before it gets too cold too. And then finally, we've been doing a lot of maintenance around the grounds this year. One of our concerns in many of our buildings are some of the shrubbery areas are overgrown. It's a security concern that I have, and we've been addressing that this fall, and we're going to continue to address it into the fall and into next year. There's just too much to do at one time, but we're trying to take care of the major areas that have overgrown bushes where they create a security concern around our buildings. So there was identified areas at 3 out of the 5 buildings that we're addressing, and the district center, family center area was one of them. So you'll kind of notice more on the side of the building over here, a big difference. It looks pretty barren because it's brand new plants planted in there. So next year they'll fill in a little bit, but it won't be. Some of the bushes that were in there actually are on the invasive species list now that the U of M puts out. So. And they were probably planted in 1998, and they weren't back then when the building was built. So it was time to replace and refresh. And then there's some trees over in the football stadium that there's about 8 trees that we had to remove and will be replaced this fall yet. So just kind of taking care of the buildings and grounds a little bit, or the grounds a little bit too, and making sure that, one, we're not creating any additional security hazards, and two, they're up to the standard that they should be. So That's the things that we're working on right now, mid-year. But again, like I said earlier, we'll be coming back with kind of the bigger forecasted projects for the summer, the ones where we'll be probably going out for bid. But I think right now, it's too early to tell. We have the bond referendum that's out, and so there's a lot of unknowns right now. So we need to wait till we get some of those questions answered before we can forecast those for the board. That's it.
Questions? Once the boilers are up and running at Highland, will the steam pipes that run under here still be active or just available, or are you gonna utilize both, or what's the plan?
They'll be available, but not active. So I think the long-term plan for those is yet to be determined. Yeah, there won't be steam actively moving through them.
I had one other thing that I think is kind of a nice outcome, and don't want to put Brian on the spot, but Kristen's here too, and that along the back of the building at the Family Center, we're having student involvement in that, and we're putting in what kind of gardens back there? Is that the butterfly?
The butterfly garden, and then the
What's
pollinator?
Pollinators on
Yes.
the top row, and then flowers that will be cut flowers.
So one of the benefits of kind of redoing that whole area was giving the ability to kind of expand some of the work they're doing in Blooming Heights. So definitely trying to engage everything that we can. And we had some resources available right there. And so it was nice to be able to incorporate them in that.
We'll be able to go out and watch the butterflies.
And the swim team, I think, says thank you for
I
getting
was
the
gonna
pool
say
done.
something about that, yes.
But
I think there's some
the
parents.
insurance man behind you probably says thank you for not letting it drain into the tunnel. Yes, we're getting, yeah.
We were watching your face.
Yeah, we all looked at you. Right, yeah.
The firefighters, thank you for not letting it drain into the tunnel.
And we should get about 20, 25 years life out of that new tank. So that's a life expectancy of it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Thanks, Brian.
Yeah.
Okay, on to our action items. First up is the paid 2019 preliminary levy.
Good evening, Chair Larkin, school board members, and Superintendent Kelly. We're here this evening to address the preliminary levy. This is our mission. The next component will be the core values. In this presentation, we're going to focus on integrity. Tonight, you'll be asked to approve the preliminary, as a governance question, to approve the preliminary levy. The levy certification process is long, and so we start in July and August with submission to the Department of Education. In September, we do the preliminary levy certification. Then the county is mails out the proposed tax statements. And then in December, we'll have a truth and taxation meeting. And then the school board will approve the final certification. The state funding authorization, the state sets the formulas which determine revenue. Most revenue is based on specified amounts per pupil. The state sets the tax policy for local schools. The state sets the maximum authorized property tax levy. The state authorizes school boards to submit referendums for operating and capital needs to voters for approval. Here's a snapshot of our historical levy limitations, starting with pay 16 and now out to the proposed amount of pay 2019. We're currently at $9,397,426.78. We have had multiple runs this year on the levy. There's been a new few components added to the 40-page document, and whenever they add components, often there's changes in the formula allowance by legislation. The Pay 19 proposed levy is an 8.33% reduction from Pay 18. The levy types: General Fund, Fund 1, Community Service Fund is Fund 4, Building Fund is Fund 6, Debt service fund is 07. In the past, you've had OPEB, and that is currently paid off. The general fund consists of the following items: operating capital, finance code 302, career and tech, finance code 830, achievement and integration, finance code 313, safe schools, finance code 342, long-term facilities maintenance, which is made up of a wide range of finance codes, the building and land lease, and reemployment object code 280. In front of you is the summary of the 2018-19 preliminary levy. The first component is equity revenue, and equity revenue is a revenue that's based on trying to balance out to reduce disparity between the highest and low revenue sources. Is a three-part component. The local optional revenue is the $424 that's been approved, and the referendum is the 608.93 cents that has been passed in the past. Passed by the voters in the past in the community. So you can see the subtotal of the certified payable in 2018 was $3,907,771.88. Now we're looking at $2,163,542.16. The first component, most of the changes that happened with the first component is based on an estimated enrollment, and that would be resident, and estimated adjusted pupil, and legislative decisions. The second group is general designated. Integration is finance code 313, and 30.09 of integration funds come from local levy. The reemployment information, component number 8, is actually based on your actual expenses for reemployment, or also called unemployment. And so you report that, and then it kicks into the levy. Safe schools is finance code 342, and that's that money is used for school resource officers, and most of that money is paid out for a fee for service for your local community service staff. Safe schools, the next component, number 9, is actually a pass-through that your intermediate district can levy for, and that passes right through the district and goes right to 916. Vocational is finance code 830, and that's career and tech. So again, the subtotal is from payable 2018 is $656,848.48, and the preliminary is at $662,777.85. The next category is the general operating capital designated. Operating capital is finance code 302. 31.65% of is levy determined on enrollment and the age of your buildings. The next, there's a past facility bond adjustment is the next category, and that's actually based on a bond that was issued for the Columbia Academy remodel. The health and safety was a category that was discontinued, and LTFM, item number 16, replaced health and safety, and so that number 15 was discontinued. LTFM was replaced health and safety and deferred maintenance. So LTFM is the category that's made up of several finance codes as electrical, plumbing, HVAC, those components. So lease levy is the amount that you would pay to lease or rent areas within the community. Often it's like if you're renting space for us, it's 3 notes that were out for space that was for Columbia Academy, and I'll leave that one. District 916 lease levy is the amount that we paid in 916 specifically for the lease on the buildings, our portion of the lease that goes there. The lease levy for ties was discontinued because you ended that relationship, so it's no longer on the levy. So the general fund is coming in with in 2018, the certified payable amount was $6,481,786.66. For this year, the preliminary amount is $5,516,449.34. The next component is the Community Service Fund. The first, there's 4 components, and that would be community service, early childhood education, home visits, and school age care. The basic levy is the first category, and the first 3 components are based on the census that was done in 2010. And that census is based on 25,194. And the youth service is also based on the census, and after school is also based on the census. Early childhood, family education is the next category. Home visit is the next category. School age care is actually based on your actual expenditures. So you estimate what you anticipate spending in that category, and then there's an adjustment after that. Because then you report actuals, and then things are adjusted based on that. And then there's the category for abatement adjustments. The next category is capital project levy, and that's based on their net tax capacity. And certified payable in 2018 was $1,216,910.99. The preliminary levy is indicating $1,300,246.67. The last category is the debt service. The debt service is based on principal and interest payments that are due in that fiscal year times 105%, because you levy for that extra 5% in case some people don't pay. And that's what makes up that amount. And so we have the debt service in the first category, the capital facilities bond payment, and abatement adjustments. Again, the total here is $2,229,151.55 and payable 2018. For payable 2019, it's $2,282,914.05. The 2018 payable 2019 proposed levy by fund, general fund, $5,516,449.34. Community Service Fund, Fund 4, $297,816.72. The Building Fund is $1,300,246.67. Debt Service, $2,282,914.05. Total proposed tax levy is $9,397,426.78. This is a gentle reminder that we are in the preliminary levy process. MDE will make several changes and small adjustments over the next few weeks. Our enrollment will get firmed up from fiscal year 2018, and we'll have a better picture of our budget in November after the audit. At this time, we are asking for the board to, as a governance question, to approve the preliminary levy at the max.
Okay, start with a motion, and then we'll discuss.
So moved.
Motion by
Natty.
Natty,
Second.
thank you. Lorian. Okay, discussion.
A lot of information. Thank
Yeah.
you for being so detailed. I appreciate that. And I think, too, for those folks that are watching, this is also something that was presented to us at a work session. And so there is lots of communications and conversations and questions regarding that as well at that time. But I think for us as a board to talk about what levying the maximum means, and I think that continues to be an important part of this conversation, in that if we don't levy the max and funding formulas change and aid changes, we don't have any opportunity to recoup dollars that we may have passed on at that point, correct?
Correct.
Right. And these formulas are, as you mentioned at the beginning, determined by the state.
Correct.
Yep. I think that's a kind of a general information. And I'd like to reiterate what Lorian said about us having an extensive conversation at our work session last week about this and asking lots of questions. And for the sake of time, I think we'll spare a lot of those questions, but also inviting community members to our work sessions. Those are available for people to watch. If they're interested in some of those longer discussions, you're able to come and see those. So.
And I think, too, just reminding the public that if they have questions, it is confusing. It's confusing for us. but to reach out to us and we can get them the correct answers because, although thank you for a lot of your explanations in those line items, so thank you.
It's amazing how, and that's, I think, the learning curve of being a school board member, a lot of it is in school finance. It's not just in enrollment and the day-to-day of curriculum and things like that. Our governance comes a lot in the finance end, and it is a very complicated formula. And it's not intuitive. It's just not. Takes a lot of learning.
And it's not something we control.
Yep. So.
And it's a process. I mean, this is something that decisions are that we are making now are impacting us a year from now.
Yep.
And I think it's important to note too that we look at and I appreciate that you had talked about this in terms of the state set certain parameters. I mean, they determine what our funding formulas are and how that's related and what it's calculated on. So whether it's calculated based on the 2010 census, so we're using information from our community from 8 years ago, is determining what some of our funding sources are. In enrollment, and that can change from time to time, as we know, but enrollment is a factor, and all of that's predetermined, and so we're just putting numbers in to come up with their calculations, and then, as you said, they like to make changes on that too. And that's all. It all comes down to that bottom number, and that can fluctuate. And I think one of the things we should talk about is, especially for those folks that are looking at home, is that we're showing a 8.33% decrease. And I think can you talk a little bit more about what is resulting in that decrease?
It really has to do with the first category, the equity, the referendum, and the equity revenue, local optional revenue, and the referendum values. And of course, the state is still adjusting everything, and so it's the preliminary levy, and there's an opportunity for those numbers to change as they're looking at their numbers and checking their formulas. And they did put a new formula in the levy this year to adjust for the pension adjustment that was passed at the last session of legislation. And so whenever there's a change in the levy document, there's more than likely a few changes through the time too.
And I know this is, again, something that we had talked about at the work session too, but because, and this is something that we've talked about at length, our home values, our property values have increased, right? Correct. And so with the increase in property values and your tax capacity increases, then does that relate then to the reduction in the levy amount for next year too?
There's not always a direct correlation. There's been times where communities have seen an increase in their tax, what's on their tax statement, even when the values have gone down. Remember, it's not just limited to school districts. You have cities and counties that will also jump in. And so when people get their tax statements, it's always a good thing to remind them that it's not just us, but it's others as well. Mm-hmm. And remember that we're doing this process in September. If there's any changes, that the actual amount for next year that you pay may be slightly different.
Was there not at one point, I don't know why this sticks in my head, but if we didn't do the max levy, are we not telling the state we don't need as much money, and then there's an adjustment in part of their formula where we would actually get less aid from the state by signaling that
Correct.
We're saying we don't need this? I guess that's one of the things that's kind of always stuck with me is you could say that it's lower, but then all of a sudden the district is going to be struggling because they're going to have less money coming in as far as aid from the state.
It's normal business practice at this point to certify the maximum, knowing that if the state, by chance, there was a formula error and you certified a dollar amount, there's a possibility that you could change the value that the school had an opportunity to provide to support students.
Anybody else? Okay, so the question on the table, the motion, the second is to approve the 2019 payable levy. The motion, the second. So if there is no other further discussion, I would say all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Motion carries. Thanks, Bernice. I think you get to stay up there though, don't you? Next up would be the insurance renewal.
Good evening, Chair Larkin, members of the board, Superintendent Kelly. This is a rough 1-2 punch. Preliminary levy right into property and casualty insurance.
Thank you.
Well, thanks for the opportunity once again for me to come up on the Hill and meet with you. And I know we covered the insurance pretty extensively last Tuesday. So I'm here to present an overview. I want to be sensitive to your time, so we don't want to go into too much detail, but we do have a proposal with some changes, primarily in the property, and just to get the public up to speed. Historically, we have been insured. The district has been insured with Riverport, which is a Berkshire Hathaway company, for many, many years. They were basically had the MSBA endorsement for probably 25 years. They left the market, and we actually took the insurance and took it out to market, bid it last year with 6 different companies. Liberty Mutual was, let's just say it wasn't a real close bidding process from a price perspective. They quite handily were significantly more competitive than the other 5 bidding. So this year, we've presented a renewal with Liberty Mutual Insurance Company, for the property, the liability, autos, umbrella, some of the other, property floater coverages.
The current lines of coverage include commercial property. Mr. McAlpine will jump in if you're comfortable with that. Commercial property at $52,123. General liability, we had a mid-year coverage change, so anything that's reflected on the document reflects a full year premium for apples to apples comparison. One of the components that was added last year was the cyber liability and data compromise, network security. Please note mid-year additional coverage. Crime, inland marine. That inland marine includes lawnmowers, bobcats moved between buildings. Automobile, umbrella, property terrorism coverage, general liability terrorism, inland marine terrorism, and umbrella terrorism. Our premium last year was $106,246. Mr. McAlpine will cover the changes that are in our current lines of coverage and why we're considering those changes.
There's a handful of changes. First and foremost, due to a recent property inspection, Liberty Mutual has made it very obvious that we haven't been keeping pace with inflation. So the preliminary proposal called for about a $2 million increase in property values, but the insurance company, again, there's a significant gap. Basically saying that the expiring $126,678,000 was drastically insignificant, and they're pushing for property values for combined property and business personal property, total values for all 5 schools in the $165 million range. And we've got some ongoing conversations going regarding some discrepancies regarding square footage, and that'll be confirmed in the next few months. But for now, the proposal at hand, recommending that we increase the blanket building and personal property coverage to $145 million. That's the most significant increase or difference in last year's coverage. In addition to that, we increased the extra expense coverage by $1 million, and that coverage would come into play if, heaven forbid, we had a catastrophic event and had to lease short-term space to keep the kids in school. so pretty significant exposure. Another change, we added $500,000 in flood coverage. And those are the property changes. Bernice already mentioned the cyber liability. I think historically we had about $250,000 in cyber coverage for the past few years, which I think we'll all agree is definitely not adequate in the times that we're living in. So last year we made that change to increase the cyber liability from $250,000 to $1 million, and that stayed the same on the renewal proposal. And that pretty much summarizes the coverage differences from the expiring package with Liberty Mutual.
The one thing I want to indicate beyond that is the student medical coverage was an option in the past that it was carriers allowed you to have that coverage at no cost. They are going to, as of this renewal, the option was to have that coverage for $6,008. Mr. McKelpin, one of the conversations that we had was how many claims have you had in that category? How often do you use it? There's never been any claims in that category. Knowing that the value was understated, it was prudent for us to put that renewal value into the gaining ground in that property coverage line.
It's been at least 10 years since we had a student med pay payment. So again, historically, insurance carriers included it in the package. There's a lot of carriers that don't even offer it. It's not even an option anymore. There's a handful, including Liberty Mutual, that offer it now, but they want to charge a significant amount, a little over $6,000 for just $1,000 medical payment. So obviously, the district is still insured, of course, with the general liability defenses there. We just wouldn't have that supplemental medical payment coverage in case a child got injured on school grounds.
So the proposal includes expanding the current coverage line with Liberty Mutual, changing the blanket coverage from 126 to 145 million. With that change, we see a 11.4% increase over current annualized rates with expanded commercial coverage. Our renewal is set to expire on 10/1. And this fits within the budget constraints. The next category is the equipment insurance coverage, also known as the boiler and machinery coverage or mechanical breakdown. Offers protection in the event of a power surge, motor malfunction, or burnout, boiler malfunction, and/or operator error. Equipment insurance coverage covers damages caused by internal forces. Property insurance covers damages caused by external causes, for example, a fire. Examples of items covered: power surges, mechanical malfunction, operator error, computer and network failure, heating and cooling HVAC, including boiler and pressure equipment, refrigeration systems, lost, spoiled, or damaged inventory, and equipment repair. We currently have this line with Hartford steam boilers. The renewal at the same coverage will go from 5603 to 5737, which is a 2.39% increase. And again, the whole package fits within the budget constraints, and the renewal is effective, needs to be renewed by 10/1. Any questions?
Yeah, let's start with a motion to move forward to accept the renewal from Liberty Mutual and Hartford Steam. So if I get a motion to move that forward.
So moved.
Molly?
Second.
Natty? Questions, comments, discussion?
I'll comment again that this was a really detailed conversation at our work session, so thank you both for that. And I know some of the things that we had talked about for folks that are watching today is originally with the initial renewal, we were under a 3% increase, which is really really good in terms of insurance increases, but we talked about that value. And much like in our community, our home values increased, our property values that we have here increased, as well as replacement costs, construction costs, and we really felt as a board during the work session, we talked about increasing our coverage limits as long as the insurance renewal could stay within our budget parameters. I know for me, I'm really pleased to see essentially the $20 million increase in it gets us closer to where we need to be and able to stay within our budget parameters with the 11.4% increase. I think it gives us a good policy, the coverage that we need, whether it's the flood coverage that we added, the additional, if we have to lease a space, like you said, and taking into account the things that we talked about. 4 of our 5 buildings are all in one path. So if there was a tornado, came down 49th, we've got some great exposure with that as well. So I know I appreciate the kind of sharpening the pencil and going back and getting us a renewal proposal that included increasing and getting us closer where we needed with the property values.
Yeah, I feel a lot more comfortable with the increase, and it goes a long way in getting us there incrementally, getting us to that kind of goal of full coverage. I think we just want to be really good stewards of the things that we're governing here, and I think this goes a long way in getting us to that point. So
we need to be appropriately insured.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think that to be good stewards of taxpayer dollars is we have to make sure that we have an insurance policy protecting our assets as well as our business and our students and our staff and all of the things that we can use insurance for. We have to be appropriately covered. That's the only way that we can be good stewards of taxpayer dollars.
Mm-hmm.
Just to clarify, though, the 165 million, is that still up for question in terms of, that's the number that Liberty is?
That's actually the number that they presented, and they certainly are willing to make some incremental changes in the future, but we're not taking that number and just accepting it either. We're doing some homework on our end, and Brian and I have had some communication. We're going to clarify the square footage, make sure the cost per square footage is obviously accurate. We want to be prudent and provide the adequate coverage, but certainly we just want to make sure the insurance company is not getting aggressive on their estimates as well. So there'll be some ongoing communications, but that is at this point, that is their strong recommendation, and their expectation is in the next 4 years to get closer to that 100% replacement cost for all 5 schools.
But right now, we're kind of meeting them in the middle at this point while we continue to look at their calculations.
Correct.
Anybody else?
Thank you for working on that so quickly, both of you.
Okay, motion on table is to accept the renewal for Liberty Mutual and Hartford Steam. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Motion carries. Thanks, Steve.
Yep, thank you very much.
Thanks.
It's been a privilege to handle the school district's insurance, and much appreciated.
Appreciate it. Thanks, Steve.
Thanks, Bernice.
Next up is the assurance of compliance. Thanks, Bernice.
Thank you.
Chair Larkin, members of the board, Superintendent Kelly, pursuant to Minnesota rules, each year the school district shall annually submit to the Commissioner of Education a statement of compliance with state and federal laws prohibiting discrimination and provided the designated supporting information to assure that statement. This is an annual thing we bring forward to the board. Director Stenvik and myself are both here tonight to say that we are verifying that we are in district compliance with this. So if approved tonight, Superintendent Kelly will sign it, and it gets submitted into MDE, and then we're good for another year.
Okay, looking for a motion to move that forward.
So moved.
Gloria?
Second.
Molly? Discussion? Questions? don't have any options, right?
I'm glad that
We're
we
here,
are
we're
in
verifying
compliance.
that we
Thank
are
you
in
for being in
compliance.
compliance. Yeah.
Not optional, okay. Any no further discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, motion carries.
Thank you.
Thanks.
That was easy. Okay, next up, National School Board Association Annual Conference. Tonight, the board's going to be asked to approve attendance at the National School Board Association's Annual Conference, and it would be, tonight what we're doing is approving for 2 positions to be determined as to who they are moving forward. So, start with a motion, a second, and then we can open it up to discussion.
So moved.
Second.
Lorian and Natty. Discussion, comments.
This is also something we talked about at our work session, discussing the value, and even the very fact that Lorian came to the board with some ideas for community engagement that stemmed out of her trip to the National School Board Convention last year. It's good evidence that it does impact our learning and development in a way that overflows into our service as board members. So, again, the good reminders. And I've had the opportunity to attend once and learned a lot and was exposed to just other people, having other conversations with board members from different parts of the country and hearing what's going on was beneficial to me.
I personally support this. I mean, we work really hard to encourage throughout our district professional development, and I think opportunities need to be made available for the board members to take advantage of that professional development as well. I think I have not had anybody ever come back that didn't feel like they got something positive out of it, so.
I think one comment is, we approve this now and determine who's going to do registrations, but the conference is in April. There is an ability to change who is attending.
Yes.
If needed.
Yeah, we would like to do it as soon as possible. Obviously, that allows for registration for hotels and the conference itself, but yes.
But names can be changed.
Names can be changed, yep.
Okay. Anybody else? Questions, comments? Motion on the table is to approve attendance for 2 school board members for the NSBA annual conference. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Motion carries. Board topics.
Homecoming is coming up. I think we have homecoming before our next board meeting, correct? 2 Fridays from today?
We do.
And fireworks.
Fireworks.
Yes, I was going to bring that up as well. I know for our community members, there are fireworks during the Friday night homecoming game when the Highlanders score, as well as after the game. So if you hear a lot of fireworks, that's generally good news as long as they're not scoring too. But throughout the game and at the end, there are fireworks.
So if you have pets, yeah.
So then at night, you could have a full night, you can come and you can tailgate, catch a great football game, see some fireworks, so.
There's also the Hall of Fame
absolutely.
dinner and celebration that evening. They are celebrating the very successful 1990 volleyball team.
97. Is it
91, wasn't it?
91? Is it
90 or 91?
I think it's 91 if I remember the
I
sign.
think it would have been fall of 1990.
Would it?
Yes.
You would have been here.
I would have, yes.
Wow, a long time ago.
There's also a school board candidate forum on October 8th at 7 p.m. right here in the community room. So if you're interested in learning more about that, put that on your schedule.
And I know that there is opportunities coming up for the bond referendum. There's information, what you call them, sessions, meetings, and I have a list here somewhere just to give those to people, but the dates for the high school is here.
Does anybody
I'll
have
say
those
that's-
dates handy?
Hang on.
I think Kristen's looking.
Okay, I am too.
Wednesday, the 26th,
Okay.
at the high school. At what time?
That's tomorrow.
It's tomorrow?
Tomorrow.
Okay.
6:30, Saturday, somebody see? Saturday, the 29th at? Saturday, the 29th at 10:30. That's also here, correct? And then the third one, I think, is at North Park. Tuesday. Okay. All right, so tomorrow here at the high school at 6:30. Saturday, also here at the high school, 10:30, and then Tuesday, October 2nd at North Park at 6:30. And those are information meetings designed to give people opportunity to ask questions and learn and become educated about what the bond is actually factually all about, so.
I'm sure those are available on the website also, all that information.
Yep, went up as Facebook events as well, too, so that's what I was
Great.
looking for here, so. Okay. Any other board topics? Okay. Hearing none, we'll adjourn this meeting at 8:40.